Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. I am officially done. Volume 9 is completed at this point, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get all this done in one video. I'm just going to put that out there. As usual, you guys know from the title. Yeah, 9, 10, and 11, pretty chunky, and then we have Sylphie 0, and then we have that extra chapter, which... there's a lot to talk about in that extra chapter. I really did think that Sylphie 0 and the extra chapter were going to just be breeze through them, but no, as I started taking notes, I'm like, no, there's a lot to talk about in these two chapters. I can't really... quite a bit of Sylphie's side chapter was a lot of just repeating stuff, but there's a lot of context in there that I actually am pretty interested in talking about. So as per usual, we'll just take this all at the pace that we need. People keep confirming with me, just take it at your pace, Andrew. So we're gonna keep the sales steady. As per usual, thank you guys so much for your support. All those that dropped by for the premieres. I know we've been jumping around time-wise, but it's just really trying to make sure that I have a good team of mods with me. Mainly one particular mod is really important to keep with me because I want to make sure that my schedule is convenient for them because I rely on them a lot. They do a lot for me. So if you have time, get in the chat and give a special thanks to Adrian for protecting Andrew and technically protecting the rest of the chat. For those that have not read the entire series, he protects us. Adrian, protect. But yes, thanks so much, Adrian, for your help. And yes, again, to everybody that supports the channel, those that hit the like button, go hit the like button now if you can. Those that leave comments, those that share out the videos, and just those that take time out of their schedule to be a part of this. It means a lot to me. I'm so glad you guys enjoy this content, and I love delivering it to you guys. Additionally, yes, as per usual, all those that support on Patreon, our tips link, our super thanks, all that are members of the channel itself, you guys mean a lot to me. And yes, hopefully, the quality of the Mushoku Mondays will get better as well, because I have upgraded my setup a little bit, and so it should look a little better. You might see a little bit of quality increase, so hopefully that's enjoyable to you guys. But without further ado, let's jump right into Chapter 9, Rain in the Forest, Part 1. Not insinuating anything in there, are we? It was evening time, and 3 people stood in the student council room. Ariel, Luke, and Fitz. Ariel starts the conversation. The other day, Rudius ran into us while we were shopping. He found your actions rather suspicious, Fitz. Not long thereafter, he threw you to the floor in the library, after which you ran off, declaring yourself to be a man. Or so the rumors have it. Rudius probably believes that to be a lie. He didn't get any chance to touch your body at some lengths, from the sound of things. However, it seems he has no plans to tell anyone about your secret. He claims to be frightened of antagonizing me. But given his skills, that seems highly unlikely. I believe he's simply attempting to do right by a friend. Quite admirable, really. The question at this point is, what are you going to do? I like this, the fact that it seems like Ariel at this point acknowledges how skilled he is, all the feats that he has done in the past. She doesn't seem like Rudius should be afraid of her. Like, to be perfectly honest, if Rudius wanted to, I believe he could take down Ariel, at least according to what I know about what she has built. Yes, she does have strong ties within the systems in the northern region. She's making friends with a lot of very powerful people, but at the same time, Rudius has access to her, and if Rudius wants, he could take her down. And he also has a lot of information, which we'll find out later is even more stronger than we actually initially thought, or at least I did, that yes, there is some credit to the idea of Fitz keeping his identity a secret, which we'll get into that later on. I'll probably get more into my theory there as we get into that whole thing. Fitz's shoulders twitched at Ariel's harsh tone, but he made no reply. I do think it's all right to take your time with this. However, it's now been half a year since you made any progress at all. Can you blame me for wanting to say something? Ariel knew by Fitz fiddling his fingers, he was overwhelmed. I have to say, I've gotten rather sick of watching you dither around like this. It was actually true that Ariel enjoyed watching Fitz squirm. But now with Silent or Nanahoshi taking Rudius' attention, it was painful for Ariel to watch her fidget. I think it's about time that you had the courage to tell him who you really are, Fitz. Or rather, Sylphie. There it is. Granted, I kind of talked about the fact that I already knew this based on the last Mushoku Monday, but there it is. It's a wrap. Thank you guys for joining us for Mushoku Mondays. We are now finished. We can move on. It's been revealed. I can move on with my life. I'm moving on to Ascendance of Bookworm. Yes, we have now revealed. Fitz removed his glasses to reveal her face. It was a face of Sylphiette, Rudius's childhood friend. It is finally over. Now, there's still a big, huge question mark that still remains. I might get into it at some point, but I guess I can get into it here. It's revealed. This whole time, and especially with Sylphiette Chapter 0, we get a full perspective here that, yes, this whole entire time, Fitz has been Sylphie. From the very beginning, when Rudius first ran into Fitz, it was Sylphie. Every time he's bumped into Sylphie, she was disguised as Fitz. Every scenario except for one. There was one occasion, at least according to the entire Volume 9, there could have been something else they may mention later on in Volume 10 or something, but it seems to indicate that every time Rudius has run into Fitz, it has been Sylphie. Well, I guess in the courtyard when Sylphie was with Ariel and Fitz was there too, he was waving at Fitz, granted, yes. The thing that still puzzles me, now that this is finally answered, the thing that still puzzles me is what was that earlier Sylphiette chapter. Sylphie gets up, she walks out the door, she sees Ariel's on the bed, at least that's where she sleeps. I don't think it necessarily said that she was there, but I think it indicated that she was there. Then she walked out the door, and then she greeted Fitz. Now, the assumption based on the previous chapters is that that was maybe Luke. Luke was dressed up as Fitz, and so she greeted Fitz as Luke. You're not going to walk out into the hallway and go, "Hey, Luke, how's it going?" And then somebody overhears and goes, "Wait, that's supposed to be Fitz. Oh, so Fitz isn't real." I can see that. I can see it being somebody besides Sylphie. Somebody is using this disguise to keep watch. And they want to emphasize the idea, because Sylphie, as we find out later on, is the strongest. Like, this is the mysterious being that makes Ariel so threatening. Fitz is mysterious. We don't know his origins. He never talks. Nobody knows where he came from, but he's extremely powerful. And for Ariel to have this really powerful person that nobody knows under her strength, doing her bidding, makes people fear her and want to support her because of that power that she's instilling upon her aura by controlling Fitz. And so I can see somebody walking by, seeing Fitz outside, to be much more intimidating than walking by and seeing Luke outside. So there might be this desire for them to always have Fitz present in the presence of Ariel. Whether it be Sylphie dressed up as Fitz, or it be somebody else, if she's not there, using a disguise to look like Fitz. Now, there's a fear there because you'd hope that anybody disguised as Fitz is going to keep up that facade, but that's what they're kind of addressing here. But again, it was still kind of a struggle for me the moment that she said, "Oh, hey, Fitz." But as I thought about it more, it made sense more in the idea that if they're outside, she would greet them as Fitz because somebody could overhear her say that. It was just more puzzling to me. The thing that still sticks in my brain, that still makes it confusing, and it might be purposely confusing in order to confuse the reader, but it doesn't make sense to the context of Sylphie when she walks out and greets Fitz. Makes sense? She then thinks about how Fitz works so hard, is always out there. Why in her mind is she saying things about Fitz working so hard to protect the princess when she knows who's disguised there? You would assume she knows who's disguised there. That's the only thing that kind of throws it off. But again, that I think is just the writer trying too hard to throw us off. And I think when you now think about it going back, it doesn't make any sense why he wrote it that way. I don't want to say it's scummy, like it's bad writing, because it's purposely confusing you. And even still now, once you know the truth, it confuses me more. But it makes sense. Anyways, I've killed that horse. Moving on. I'd be very curious to see how they pull that off in the anime, for sure, though. Because the anime has done a terrible job hiding this whole secret. Again, the end of the first season, it literally just has this person that says, "This is Rudius. He saved me." And it's Fitz saying it. I mean, they could throw it off the scent by saying, "Oh, that was Sylphie talking the whole time." But no, it's like, no, you're not going to throw me off the scent there. That was Sylphie, and she was saying things as Sylphie. My only hope is that if they start the second season by having that scene, like the first scene of the second season, Sylphie wakes up, walks out the door, greets Fitz. That's the only way that I could see them causing a confusion like I did reading these volumes. That was what confused me. That was the first point that went, oh, get off the scent. Anyways, moving on. But yes, it was Sylphiette, Rudeus's childhood friend. Princess Ariel, Sylphie looked like she was on the verge of tears. Sylphie, this is going to be the third time I ask you this, but right now, is there something you want to do? In Sylphie's mind, she thought there was, but it was impossible for 2 reasons. First, she was afraid that Rudeus forgot her. Second, she cared about the friends in front of her. She'd have to part ways with Ariel, betray Luke. For this, she kept silent. Now, this is our first in the list of why she didn't want to move forward. She's afraid of betraying Ariel. Walking away, going with Rudeus, would break her from Ariel. And additionally, as we see the significance of Fitz himself, there's a fear that doing this whole thing breaks the facade that Fitz creates, this fear of Ariel that people have. The reason that so many people have gathered around Ariel, they could all walk away the moment they find out. Ariel went on to explain that Sylphie has saved her life countless times. Since the moment she fell from the sky in the gardens of the Silver Palace. There answers that whole question. Yes, that was Sylphie. Saved her from assassins at night, fought for her in the Red Worm's upper jaw. But from Sylphie's perspective, she says, no, I owe you so much more. She had nothing, but yet Ariel reached her hand out to her. But Ariel claimed that Sylphie repaid that debt, and then some. And here's the interesting part. This is like one of those almost, it feels like a push away kind of thing. Ariel claimed she was simply manipulating her to serve her needs. Like, you don't mean that. Girl, you don't mean... I mean, yes, I could see initially. Even Sylphie here says, you weren't manipulating me. I wanted to help you because we were friends. Which I would argue that's the whole point of manipulation, Sylphie, is that you think you're helping her. I can see it both ways. Like, I can see Ariel manipulating Sylphie, but I can also see her manipulating Sylphie and then eventually becoming friends with her. But either way, as you see it, if you were being manipulated in a sense, you probably wouldn't know. But Ariel speaks up. I'm sure that's true, yes. And for the very same reasons, I'd like to help you now. Because we're friends, aren't we? Again, it could be this girl could manipulate. Like, I will say, I give the writer massive credits with Ariel. Because it always feels like, they always give off this facade that she is this great person that speaks and everybody bows. Like, just by her voice. The beauty of her voice and the way that she speaks, she can manipulate anybody. And I always feel like every time I read a line by Ariel, I can see it. Like, this writer knows how to write a character that is not obviously manipulating, but you can see it. You can see it in their words. They always say the right thing. Most characters often stumble with their words, or they choose words that might lead in a different direction, or they might make mistakes. But Ariel always seems to speak in a way that's very well thought out. Ariel, knowing Sylphie was holding back for her sake, wanted to help her as a friend. There was no more reason for Sylphie to hold herself back for her goals. If Sylphie wanted something, she wanted her to leave and prioritize it. She's tired of waiting, Sylphie. Like everybody else in Mushoku Mondays, for me personally, everybody's sick of it. Sylphie, go. While Sylphie once again claimed that it would be betraying Ariel, Ariel replied that the reverse was true as well. She didn't want to betray Sylphie's feelings. In the kingdom of Asra, this statement wouldn't pass scrutiny. But this was the kingdom of Roa, and Ariel was in exile. While Luke swore an oath and wouldn't accept a statement like this, Sylphie has never sworn an oath. I thought that was actually very surprising. I assumed by this point, Sylphie had sworn an oath, but it seems like she has been this whole time literally just following her around and helping her, which yes, makes sense. Technically, they're trying to keep Fitz's identity a secret. And to bring Fitz forth to swear an oath, and I guess it depends on how they handle oaths. In a lot of locations, a lot of kingdoms, an oath is done in public, brought forth, and you swear an oath in front of everybody. And technically, they kind of gave us a sense that it didn't last very long before they left. Or perhaps Ariel never felt the need for it. Even still, Sylphie would sacrifice herself if Ariel ordered it. Sylphie crazy, dude. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead here, but Sylphie crazy, dude. I don't know how I feel about Sylphie. It's nice, the idea of being willing to sacrifice yourself for somebody else, especially for the sake of somebody that you probably would have been dead if it weren't for her. Like, if Ariel didn't take Sylphie under her wing, she probably would have been executed. Tell me, Sylphie, do you intend to make a traitor of me? After all I've done for you, What? No. Sylphie's eyes met Ariel's stern expression. Show some courage and speak your mind. What do you want to do right now? Well, Sylphie struggled. She needed the courage to put her feelings into words. Courage she had lost. I want to be with Rudy. Well done. I'm glad you finally came out and said it. Pursue your own goals first, Sylphie. You can always come back to help me once you're ready. Luke spoke up. Deal with your personal affairs before worrying about ours. There was kindness in both of their eyes, and their smiles were genuine. Three of these, I don't know, I just like the three of these. I almost don't want Rudius to get with Sylphie just because I want these three to stay together. I do kind of find the three of these just really great pairing. There, I ship Sylphie x Luke x Ariel. Stop. Sadly, Luke was actually conflicted inside, but he was happy for his friend and trusted Ariel's judgment. But I don't think I can take it if Rudius doesn't remember me. Let's think that part over now, shall we? The three of them debated approaches. There was a genuine fear that he might have forgotten Sylphiette from their time at Buna Village. It had been 8 years. Additionally, Sylphie had not heard Rudius mention her name this entire year, which makes sense. He believes that Sylphie is somewhere safe. Why would he be walking around? Now, the sad thing is that he's not casually mentioning her. I was talking to somebody in the Discord, and I actually went through and I was searching for Sylphie's name in the volumes, and the only time Sylphie ever came up was whenever he sort of casually thought about something that reminded himself of his time at Buena Village, and he would briefly talk about Sylphie. It was mostly about magic. Oh, that's right, I taught Sylphie silent casting. She learned it pretty quickly. Why can't these people learn it? Oh, that was that time that I was learning about combining magic with Sylphie. I wonder why they teach it this way here. He was only really thinking about Sylphie whenever he's thinking about pretty much comparing how he taught her. His thoughts about Julie was paralleled with Sylphie for most of the time, but he never brings up her name. And even there was conversation in the Discord on the idea of what about his statement to Fitz on the idea that he was, studying the displacement incident, and part of that was because he still had an acquaintance that was missing. He mentioned his whole family was found, but he was still missing his acquaintance. He could have been talking about Sylphie there, but at the same time, he quickly says in his own mind right after that, this is all a lie. I was here to learn about ED. And it's technically not a lie. I do want to look into the displacement incident, but he doesn't say it's technically a lie, but yeah, I technically still need to find Sylphie. He never mentions Sylphie. Again, I think a large part of that is because the moment that he's seen the board in the refugee camp, it was like, oh, okay, she's safe. Go ask them, hey, do you know where she's at? I mean, she's been found, right? Oh yeah, but we don't have any information about her because, again, she's Fitz now. They covered up where she went, but they did report that she was alive. I think at that point, that relief hit him, and then it immediately turned to, but Zenith's still gone. I have to help Paul and find Zenith. That's immediately took his mind frame. And then the whole thing happened with Edis. Edis breaks him. He goes up to the north. He's just focused on finding Zenith. He doesn't care about anything. The thing to remember is it's not so much that he doesn't care about Sylphie. It's just that his life went down the drain very quickly. Like, he's seen a very large emotional shock the moment that Edis left him. He broke. He was giving up on life. Even when he got some relationship with Sarah and things didn't work out with her, he was broken to the point that he was going to give up. And I think he kind of strayed his focus with the help of Soldat. But then the moment that he found out that Zenith was okay, he kind of like, okay, he became an equilibrium, but he still needed to fix his problem. And then the man God gave him a purpose. And so he went to go that purpose. Again, it's a shock giving up, forcing himself to have a purpose. That purpose gets found, and then he finds another purpose. It's not so much he forgets and doesn't want to see Sylphie, but that he's kind of just driving on autopilot for quite a while. That what purpose would he have to think about her? Kind of left her way back here. Ariel tried to put herself in Rudius' shoes. That's disgusting, Ariel. Please don't do that again. Those are some nasty shoes, girl. She tried to put herself in Rudius' shoes, was immediately disgusted, puked, and then decided not to do it ever again. Not remembering every attendant who served her in the last 8 years, but she did recall a few, like Lilia. Thanks, chat. Thanks, chat. Chat, I love when people think that things are explained and they're like, wait, they already explained that Lilia was taking care of Ariel. No, what? This is where it says it. This is literally where it happens. I'm mostly kidding. It's just, I do find it always funny whenever somebody thinks that things were already explained a long time ago, and then we eventually find out, no, this is where it happens. But no, yes, this is the point which they finally reveal that the person that Lilia was protecting when she got injured and left the royal palace was Ariel. Ariel was going to be assassinated. Lilia saved her and then got injured. So it's small world. I kind of assumed that was going to be the case because it almost kind of felt like it sort of lined up, and I kind of figured, you know, it's going to be probably a small world situation. Lilia probably was protecting Ariel. It makes Lilia seem very old, but Lilia's pretty old, I guess. But yes, like Lilia, who left the court when Ariel was really young. She couldn't remember her very clearly, but she remembered the way she fought off an assassin. Now, it could be that Ariel seen Lilia fight off an assassin that was trying to kill another child, and it wasn't necessarily that she was protecting Ariel, but probably is though. Ariel started to hone in on the possibility of there being some sort of memory that Sylphie has with Rudius. Knowing that when they were partying with nobles would throw massive parties, trying to push an impression upon their peers. So there's a lot of nobles out there, and if you wanted them to remember your name, you threw a great party, because then they would go, oh man, yeah, Philip, he threw a big party. That dude knows how to throw parties. All those beast folks all over the place. But she thought the idea of Sylphie having silent casting would be pretty much a huge hint to Rudius. There wasn't many uniquely skilled like Sylphie, and the idea of her having silent casting seems pretty unique, and should be a huge hint to Rudius. Good to kind of note here, and I think they kind of mentioned it later, but she has white hair. Sylphie didn't have white hair. That's the big problem, Ariel, and it's sad that Sylphie never tells him. But Ariel knew that there was 3 major issues that Rudius had to connect this hint. He had a tendency for self-deprecation, instinctively believing that anything that he could do was easy for someone else to imitate. Secondly, since his run-in with Rajerd, Kishirika, Orsted, and Barigati, he had an impression the world was full of people stronger than him. Again, he always sets his bar really low because everybody that he's been beat the crap out of were people that were extremely powerful. These aren't normal, average people. He assumed that there was plenty of silent spellcasters. Third, Rudius would assume that someone guarding Ariel would be skilled. At this point, Sylphie came up with her strongest memory. It was Rudius saving her from bullies. However, she still feared saying why. She didn't want to tell them that she had green hair at the time. This is where we finally find out that this entire time, as Ariel and Luke are furious with Rudius, Sylphie's their friend, and he's acting like he's never seen her before. That's like when Luke first ran into Rudius. Oh, you're going to act like you don't know. Like, he's mad at Rudius. How could you not know Sylphie's right in front of you? You're an idiot. Because Sylphie never told them that she had green hair. Sylphie originally hid the fact that she once had green hair, fearing that they might treat her with suspicion. Not that she didn't trust them now, but the thought of admitting it frightened her. So it's not only Rudius that she has a problem with... it's not only... This girl has zero courage. This girl is the most timid creature ever. That's probably why so many people love her to death. There's so many Sylphie fans out there because they love those timid characters. Girl can't speak up to anybody, even her closest friends, even to her beloved one, because she's so afraid of what'll happen. Once the lie was out, there was no taking it back, and her hair showed no signs of going back to being green. Which again is what I kind of assumed, because they were mentioning the idea that Rajerd, and with the hair that he has, it's kind of part of the whole curse thing. And so if Sylphie has some sort of curse or something like that's inflicting her, if the whole displacement incident happened and maybe it drained that curse from her, because it seems like they're already implying with like the previous chapters, a curse can be transferred to something, and that curses have some sort of connection to mana itself, like an issue with the mana itself. If it's drawn away from her, there's no reason for it to come back. At this point, because of this memory of bullies, Ariel is trying to figure out some way of kind of re-sparking that memory in Rudius. So she's kind of thinking, well, I can arrange for a group of ruffians to attack Sylphie and then have Rudius save her. But Sylphie was really skilled, and she'd probably easily dispatch them. probably kill them. Then Ariel remembered Thunderbolt was in town, and they were known for their skill. But then she remembered Rudius knew them. They were seen together with Annalise and Cliff. And technically, any other group of adventurers would be out of the question too, because Rudius probably had more acquaintance in that community than even Ariel did. Plus, someone could get hurt in the process. Again, this is kind of Ariel sort of acknowledging, or at least assuming the possibility that Rudius knows a lot more people than even she does. Remember, Volume 7 and going into Volume 8 is just nothing but Rudius establishing friendships. Now, he's not buddy-buddy with all these adventurers, but he was trying to get his name out there. And so he's doing a lot of really good things, and people were cheering him on, calling out to him in the adventure guilds. Oh, it's Quagmire Rudius. He helped us with that one thing over there. Yeah, he's the one that took out the red worm. Cool guy he is. Rudius technically probably has more connections with people than Ariel. Ariel, again, has more connections to powerful people, but Rudius probably has the populace. It's like almost a shift thing here. I just thought about this. Way back in the previous kingdom, Ariel was all about trying to get the commoners and the lower nobles and trying to uprise to the bigger guys. And here it's like she's fighting against Rudius, who's got the lower people, and she's trying to go for the higher end people. At this point, Ariel gave up on that and says, okay, is there any other memories that you've had with Rudius? Which, yes, Sylphie had one. But then her face turned red. At first, Rudy thought that I was a boy, you know? One day, it started raining while we were outside practicing magic. So, I came over to his house to take a bath. But he started tearing off my clothes. Sylphie glanced at Luke, who promptly covered his ears. The dude could take a hint. And then he pulled down my panties and saw my private parts. That's how he realized I was a girl. I feel so bad for this girl. I feel so bad for this girl having to explain this. You probably could have been a bit more vague, Sylphie, and they probably would have gotten a hint. I don't think you had to go into full details. Sylphie further explained that Rudius stated afterwards his guilt. Ariel figured this was the reason why Rudius kept Fitz's secret. I think he actually technically implies that. I think it was in the previous chapter. He said something to the effect of when he first was thinking that Fitz was a girl, like he was just stuck on it. At some point, he mentioned the idea that if he were to reveal it, it would have similar devastating effects. I think he said something to the effect of, the last time I just ripped somebody's clothes off to prove it, it turned out really bad. So Ariel, surprisingly perceptive. In the end, Ariel knew that this was their chance, making it an identical situation for Rudius to undress Sylphie. Sure, we just acknowledged the fact that he was devastated by that, and so now we're going to make it happen again. I like how perceptive Ariel is, but it's not like she's against it. It's like she knows that's why Rudius doesn't want to reveal the secret, but she's like, but we're going to do it again. It's going to fix things. We're going to do it again. With that excitement, Sylphie would be able to blurt out the truth. But she knew that Sylphie could self-sabotage due to her cowardice. Before they started, Ariel wanted Sylphie to explain what it means to be with Rudius. Sylphie considered this, and her fantasies honestly was about her living a married life with Rudius back in Buena Village. A life in a house similar to Rudy's parents, both working and the same dynamics. Again, this is kind of another character that sort of kind of perceives Paul's and Zenith's marriage as being perfect. Remember, Roxy had the same feeling that they had a perfect family. So obviously, Ellen Elise knows what she's talking about because it worked for them and they're so perfect. Sylphie almost has the same mindset. They would share the same bed, morning greetings side by side, Rudy off to train while Sylphie made breakfast. After she watched him silently eat breakfast, he would head off to work, lunchbox in hand, waving goodbye as he headed to meet up with the Princess Ariel. It's kind of weird, like her mindset is like, Rudy's just gonna work for Ariel. Like, just an assumption there. I mean, again, she knows that Ariel's after him, which again, gets into my arguments later, but I'm not gonna get into that now. I'm gonna hold my anger for later. His type of work wasn't really important in her fantasy, so she never really thought about the details. But after work, they'd meet up at the entrance of their home, and he would brush snow off of her shoulders. They would embrace with a hug before washing up for dinner, her preparing it as Rudy worked on his figurines. Rudy would tell stories of his work. She'd giggle at his jokes and be impressed by his accomplishments. He'd later carry her off to bed and ask how many children she wanted. Ariel had to snap her out of it at this point. So like, okay, your dream's going too far. All right, that's enough. I don't need to hear any more. Ariel then proposed that she'd take that same fantasy and imagine another woman in her place. At this point, Sylphie imagined living next door to that same house, watching Nanahoshi and Rudius through the window. I had such a vivid image of this whole scenario. But when they noticed Sylphie looking out the window, they smirked, and she closed the curtains. Sylphie interrupted herself. Just so bad. How did you know that Nanahoshi smirked? She had her mask on. Sylphie's success depended on her taking action, and this seemed to encourage her. I won't allow you to chicken out again. Not this time. If you come back and tell me that you couldn't find the courage to speak up when it counted, then I'll never help you with this again. In fact, I'll do worse than that. By my authority as Ariel Anemoi Asura, second princess of the kingdom of Asura, I'll forbid you from ever contacting Rudius Greyrat again. Ow. Ow. Like, she's done. Like, girl, done. Sylphie understood that Ariel was trying to push her forward, not as a threat, but in order to approach it very seriously. With that, the task was accepted. Quickly, they put their plans in action. During lunch one day, Sylphie entered the first floor cafeteria. She recalled how Ariel would scoff at the nobles that would normally mock the beast folks and the demons in this area, because Ariel knew that in the past, those same tribes nearly defeated the humans. At some point, Sylphie spotted Rudius. He was chatting with his friends. At the time, Rudius was offering to make Bodigadi a figurine of Empress Kishirika to enshrine her in her current form before she fully grows and matures herself. Bodigadi didn't see the logic in this, but he did admit that Kishirika was prone to getting herself killed again real soon. While Rudius offered to kind of create decorations for various ages of her, Bodigadi figures that Rudius wouldn't live long enough to see them all. Kind of interesting little passing note, this idea that it's going to take a long time for Kishirika to get fully grown. And now it could be indicating that Bodigadi knows that she's not going to get to that point where she's fully grown because she's probably going to keep dying and he won't live long enough to see her fully grow. Or it could be more of the fact that the time it's going to take her to fully grow, Rudius isn't going to live that long. Kind of interesting. Chat, I don't need to know. I don't know why I have to always say that. But Rudius thinks that he can remedy that by passing down his own technique and with the support of Bodigadi. Though Rudius wasn't asking for money, Rudius's goal was connections. He wanted connections, and he wanted Bodigadi to put a good word in for him. As Rudius fired off his usual evil smile, it was nostalgic to Sylphie. He hadn't changed. Someone once smiled like that in the royal court as well. Minister Darius, their mortal enemy. Yeah, I could see them having the same smile. Again, you'll probably go more with the idea that Rudius and him have both like a very pervy, ugly smile. But Sylphie's into it, apparently. Honestly, Darius' smile never made Sylphie flinch. She figured it was just something that came with someone being a clever person. As Rudius was a clever person, Darius was a clever person. Sylphie was impressed by their figurine work they were doing, as Rudius once showed her the red worm. Roping in a demon king made her believe that he was really serious about this project. Hello, Rudius. Oh, hello there, Master Fitz. She hesitated for a moment before asking if they could step outside for a moment. Once alone, she said that she had a favor to ask, and he quickly jumped to the task. Before she can even explain what she wanted him to do, he just wasn't going to refuse Master Fitz. Again, he really adores Master Fitz. It made her feel terrible that she was about to deceive him. She went on to explain that Princess Ariel was staying at a noble's house, and that noble boasted about how powerful their guard was, more powerful than Fitz. He stated that his bodyguard braved the forest of hell with a party of 4. He also returned with a flower that grows deep inside. Rudius immediately knew it was a freeze fringe, a powerful tonic, and this shocked Sylphie. It was a good thing they actually did the research and actually knew that there was a flower in there. Rudius went on to explain that 4 A-ranked people could handle it just fine, and getting the flower would take a little risk. He even rattled off various monsters that were in the area. Fitz continued that Ariel wasn't able to back down, and claimed Fitz could do it with a smaller group. And this is so funny, and I love how she acknowledges this. Rudy goes off and saying that how, oh, well, I can find an adventurer that can just sell us the flower and it'll be good. And they're like, wait. No. That would be cheating, Rudius. But Rudius is like, no, it's fine. I mean, power comes from many forms. including connections. But again, deep down, we know that Fitz doesn't want him to just resolve the situation. She wants him to go with her. And he keeps finding these ways to just get out of it easy. Fitz steered the conversation back, claiming if word got out, it would be humiliating to Princess Ariel. She had to do it herself, which finally Rudius agreed. And then he said that it could send Step flat. and then proceeded to mention the fact that he can get Step Leader to go in and clear beforehand. like, oh, okay, cool. All right, well, I'll just get Step Leader to do it. She thought, man, that's a really sneaky plan, but then she corrected herself. But she figures at this point that it's probably because he knows how dangerous it is, and he's trying to make a way that it would be as least dangerous as possible. Since she was an amateur, he obviously didn't want anyone getting hurt. Look, do we really need all those people? I bet you could handle it just fine by your own, Rudius. Oh, wait. Are you just asking me to be your bodyguard, Master Fitz? Yeah, that's right. Could you help me out, Rudius? Okay, then. You've helped me out before in all sorts of ways, Master Fitz. It wouldn't be right for me to turn you down. Thanks, Rudius. I was a little nervous about going alone. She's like, I've finally passed this hurdle, but I was honestly really shocked how quickly he would come up with a new plan every time she opened her mouth. All you need to do is say, Rudius, I need you to go with me to the Forest of Hail. I have something I need to do, and then tell him on the way, and he'd probably just go with it. But no, he was just trying to help you with the easiest options. With that, they would be heading off to the Forest of Hail, a 3 days travel north of Shariah at the border of Bashrant. Fitz packed light, but Rudius showed up with a big, large knapsack full of emergency supplies. You shouldn't underestimate the dangers of any forest. There's some monsters out there that can dodge a stone cannon in midair. There's a couple, I think, that Rudius has ran into. I mean, the snake alone in the Petrified Forest. When she questioned it, he mentioned the fact that there was plenty on the Demon Continent that were that strong too. His expression was serious. She had really underestimated the B-rank monsters in the forest. She thought she could handle them just fine. Oh, girl. Very little experience with monsters. She has plenty of experience with people, just not monsters. Sorry, Rudius, it made me feel like you did all the prep work. No need to apologize. That's part of my job when you're on a bodyguard mission. Should I be paying you for your services then? Don't be silly. I'm doing this because we're friends. I don't want anything from you. I mean, I could afford to pay you if you want. It's no big deal. She panicked at this point, wondering if she can even afford a king-tier magician. Well, I don't come cheap, you know. Well, I guess you wouldn't, but for some reason, she imagined Rudius climbing onto a slave market. She imagined Rudius climbing onto a slave market stage naked. Buying him might be fun. Gosh, Sylphie. She's as thirsty as Ellen Elise. I'm like, these recent chapters, I really feel like Sylphie's more thirsty than Ellen Elise. I know that's saying a lot, so it's nowhere near, but still. She felt a funny feeling in her lower half before snapping herself out of it. I don't know, it could be an elf thing. I don't know. I think every elf that we've run into so far has been thirsty. But anyways, they head off to the forest. He used fire magic to clear the snow path before them, something she wasn't able to get the hang of. And he was doing it in a way that didn't create steam either, which would attract monsters. She ended up questioning him about his staff. He said a young lady that he was tutoring gave it to him, but his face looked sad for some reason. Sylphie had heard this was a violent girl. She figures that he didn't want to talk about it. Do you think I could try holding it for a while? All I have is my beginner's wand, you know. I've always wanted to use a staff like that. Really? I'd assumed they'd give the bodyguards of the princess a nice staff if they wanted one. They said I didn't need one, since I could cast spells silently anyways. Talk about cheap, huh? The truth, of course, was that Rudy gave her the wand, and she didn't want to part with it. But she didn't blame Breeze for not recognizing, because it's a pretty common type of rod. Well, go on. Get a nice grip on that shaft. There. Pretty thick, huh? He had a strange smirk for some reason. He loves the staff jokes. Rudius loves the staff jokes. Even after he got super embarrassed when he realized that he said the whole thing with the stone and how big it is, now he does it again. Even afterwards. Yeah, it's super thick. Are you supposed to hold it in both hands? Maybe. I think they wanted to make sure that I could still use it when I grew up. They continued onward. Time for the next step. She brought the ring that she wore up to her mouth, whispering, Red Tower. It was a magical implement that Princess Ariel wore. The stone could change colors along with the stone that its companion ring had. She was signaling somebody. She looked at the sky with anxiety. The sky began to grow cloudy with a natural speed. Everything good so far. Rain clouds? That's strange. It looks like it's gonna rain, Master Fitz. Sylphie knew they had to take refuge in a cave or make a shelter. As she checked a map to give Rudius some options, don't worry, I'll scatter the cloud in no time. He then lifted his hands toward the sky. Oh crap, she forgot, he was a Saint tier water magician. Ariel had hired 2 advanced tier water magicians for the job. They would stand no chance pushing these clouds together around them if Rudius was up against them. In desperation, she began to channel mana into the staff that she held. She had to stop Rudius from scattering the clouds. She could feel it amplify her power to a remarkable degree. Rudius looked puzzled. He had no idea that Sylphie was fighting to keep the clouds together as he was trying to push them away. She channeled more mana upwards, visualizing the rain clouds growing fatter and spreading, just like Rudius taught her. Sorry, Master Fitz. Looks like I'm not performing well today. That's okay, Rudius. It's probably because I was holding your staff. I was surprised he didn't take the staff and go, oh, that's right. I immediately thought that when I read this, I'm like, Rudius would be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Here we go. Silly. Even without my staff, I should have been able to scatter those easily enough. He studied his hands. I guess I haven't done much lately. Am I just getting rusty? Or maybe... At this point, she was feeling that he suspected the clouds were intentionally created. It was extremely rare for it to happen in this season. Oh well, there's not much we can do about it now that it's coming down. There's a cave up ahead, isn't there? Let's take shelter there. Yeah, good idea. All according to plan. Soaking wet, they arrived at the shelter, their real destination. Big shock. This is all a part of Keikaku. It's all going according to Keikaku. Yeah, that's the end of chapter 9. That's the end of chapter 9. Chapter 10, Rain in the Forest, Part 2. Rudius knew there was something fishy from the start. Fitz acting strangely as he hired him, the rain clouds gathering unnaturally fast. Downpours in winter was extremely rare here. He assumed at this point it may be the noble that put Ariel up to this. He was trying to sabotage Fitz. Rudius takes a completely different direction. It makes sense, though, that he would think this. It makes perfect sense that he would think this. Was Fitz picking up on this? He seemed strangely calm despite the tense look on his face. Maybe he was expecting that this could happen. No, Rudius. Fitz's face isn't tense because of that. Rudius also thought there was a possibility that he was planning on assassinating Rudius. Now it's going this direction. Look, it went this direction. Now we're going this direction. Fitz is there to kill him. But that didn't make any sense because technically he's had so many opportunities to kill me all the way up until now. Rudius was trying to figure out what is going on. That all aside, though, they had to get dry. So he quickly set a fire and put his cloak out. He was soaked all the way down to his underwear. Setting up some drying rack with earth magic, he hung up everything but his underwear. Problem now is, what was he going to do about that? Strip naked in front of Fitz? He glanced at Fitz, finding him hugging his shoulders, whimpering softly. Fitz had took off his coat, but nothing else. Rudius went to question him if he was going to strip down, but he stopped himself. Of course, Rudius had his suspicion that Fitz was a girl. But this was genuinely a dangerous situation. Master Fitz, what is it, Rudius? You know, a girl I know once told me that elves have a rule against letting people from a different race see them naked. Why don't I turn around and cover my eyes? You just take those clothes off and dry them with magic. And then you could just tell me when you're done. Huh? Honestly, Fitz's shock made sense, because Rudius made that all up. Yes, if that was taboo, Annalise was violating it every single day. But he wanted to make it convenient for Fitz. All he had to do was play along. Rudius turned and listened carefully. Obviously, there was no reason for him not to just listen to the sounds and kind of let the imagination do the rest. But he wasn't hearing anything. No cloth or magic to dry them off. Though he did recall back in his previous life when he was in elementary school, there was a girl that was able to change into her swimsuit without having to take her clothes off first. Since they all had to kind of change in the same classroom because they didn't make separate changing rooms or anything in their school, he thought it was a really cool trick. Later, he had to check on that method on the internet. It was purely academic. Purely. At this point, he glanced back to see Fitz pale, still clutching his shoulders with both arms, trembling more fiercely than before. Girl is dedicated. Girl's like, I'll die. I have to get him to take these clothes off. I'll die. Like, this is like massive dedication here. She is going to make Rudius take them off, even if she dies standing there. I might not be sold on Sylphie as the best waifu of the show or the series or anything, but I'll give her some freaking credit here. Girl is pushing herself. Please, you've got to take those clothes off. Do you want me to make you a little stall or something? Or maybe I could just leave the cave. Yeah, that's fine. Wait. Fitz slowly walked over, standing on quivering legs. Fitz stood there, looking at Rudius, looking like he wanted to say something. You're gonna catch a cold, Master Fitz. Yeah, you're right. You've got to get those clothes off. It's dangerous. Getting too cold can kill you. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna die at this rate. I can't take these off myself. You do it for me. Rudius was confused by those words, but his hands were already moving forward. Fitz's shoulders were cold, slender, and soft. Master Fitz, to be honest, I am aware of the fact that you're a woman. Okay, but if you don't take the clothes off, I might die, right? Right. He couldn't figure out what her thought process was. Maybe this was a blackmail scam. The moment he takes her clothes off, they will take pictures or something. His hands had a mind of their own. He unbuttoned her cloak, revealing her drenched white shirt. Underneath the transparent sports bra with natural padding. Master Fitz, what's the matter, Rudy? When Rudius heard the familiar nickname, an old memory rose to the surface. He'd experienced this before. Fitz's face was bright red, all the way to the tips of her ears. He peeled off her shirt, revealing her pale skin underneath. She was thinner than he even expected. Rudius's little boy slowly lifted to a salute. He couldn't figure out what it was about Fitz. He fought against his urges to push her down right then. He reached down to her pants, and then an image of his past flashed into his mind. He did something like this years ago. When he was about 5 or 6, he stripped her down to see her white pantsu. Noting the smooth curve down there, he swallowed loudly. He's like, it's a curve. It's a curve. It's not a lump. It's a curve. Sorry, I'm interrupting the important moment for all the Sylphie fans here. He removed her gloves too. He recognized that hand. An old scar on one. How did it happen? Right. She stuck her hand into a stove once and burned herself. That's why she struggled with learning fire magic. I actually like this part more than anything. Like, I guess we all kind of assumed up to this point that the trigger point was going to be the pulling down. Like, that's the pinnacle image there, the pull down and go, oops moment. But no, it was the hand that was the first point where he sort of connects it. Like, again, earlier it does mention the idea of this image flashing through his mind. Like, I did this once before. But I thought it was more interesting. I like that transition where it goes from flash memory to taking off the glove. Oh, that scar. How did she get that? Oh, that's right. She burnt her hand once when she stuck her hand into a stove. That transition, that slow shifting from this to the old was really cool. She was looking down at his tent. Fitz was a miracle worker. There's still one thing left. He knew that she wasn't talking about her bra or her panties. He reached up and took her sunglasses off. Underneath was a familiar face. Rudius had expected back then that he would grow up to be a lady killer. He planned on latching onto him and snatched girls up that he passed over. That's how pretty she was, even as a kid. And now she had grown up to be more beautiful than he'd imagined. I like that. I really did like that segment right there because, again, it kind of gives us indication, like, early on, it's, okay, this boy's super gorgeous, and he's going to get all the girls. He's going to be a lady killer. And then once he realized that it's a girl, he kind of starts talking about this idea of it's a friend, just wants to be with her, have fun. It isn't until, like, way later in, like, the whole segment, just before Paul ships him off, that it starts to kind of get this indication that, you know, yeah, I guess technically eventually we can get married and everything, you know, almost like the sense that I can mold her into the point where she's like this perfect wife. But it always hits so heavy on how she's so petite, so cute. But this is kind of one of those moments where it kind of shifts from cute to beautiful. Beautiful is such a different word to give it. Her features had a hint of childishness. She had a hint of her fellow elf, Ellen Elise. But somehow her face was far more approachable and endearing. He's thinking about Ellen Elise right now. Of all the things you're thinking about right now is Ellen Elise. Maybe she inherited that from her human ancestors. Even her blush hadn't changed at all. Why did it take so long to figure it out? Was it her hair? Yeah, it was different. But hair changes colors. Maybe even bleaching it was an option. Is your real name Sylphiette by chance? Yes. It's finally out. It's finally out. Again, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. Thanks for watching. I keep using that joke. It's done. Move on. Next chapter, let's just, where we get back into the story? We're done with this whole thing. We can move on with our lives now. No, it's not over yet. Can you guys tell I got a hint of I'm tired of this? Does anybody get a sense that I'm tired of Sylphie at this point? This took a bit too long, I feel like. But again, that's partly because I'm doing such a chapter-by-chapter analysis. And I know that's not the same for everybody that just blitzed through it and got the answer really quickly. My experience is what they dealt with the web novel. Chapter by chapter. Yes, it is. I'm Sylphiette. Sylphiette from Buena Village. She was overcome with emotion. Her smile crumpled and disappeared. She broke down completely, throwing her arms around Rudius. I finally said it. I am happy for her, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate Sylphie. I am super happy for her. Like, this whole last 2 volumes was her struggling over this. So yes, seeing her overcome what is extremely difficult for her makes perfect sense that this is an extremely emotional moment for her. She has been literally dreading this moment for so long, and she's finally been able to do it. Granted, it took Ariel sitting her out into the freezing cold and then dropping water on her, forcing them to get inside of a cave in an area infested with monsters just to force her to stand there until she nearly died freezing to death before Rudius had to rip her clothes off just to say it. I'm surprised they didn't get an aphrodisiac to force Sylphie to say it. So technically, Sylphie didn't do it. Ariel did it. Just like I'll mention later on, that it's not Sylphie that fixes ED, it's Luke. But the support of friends gets us through a lot of things, right? Anyhow, they stayed like that for a few long minutes. He was shocked, but it started to make sense. She was still a crybaby. She was still soft and slender. But when you hugged her, it was like your arms were around a cloud. Did she use fabric softener when she bathed? Stupid thought. What is a random thought that just pops in his head? I waited for you all that time, Rudy. I stayed at Buena Village, and I worked really hard. He knew that. Paul had told him of how she spent her time. He stroked her head and squeezed her tighter. Then, she looked at his face. Nose running and tears. It's not looking pretty right now. I've always loved you. I loved you so much back then, Rudy. And now, I love you even more. Don't leave me again. Please, I want to stay with you forever. Girl is laying it out. Girl is doing massive layout. Like, I think that confession's like a million times better than Edis ever gave. Rudius was stunned. She was attached to him back in their old days. He sort of arranged it that way. But things were different now. Rudius had spent a year learning to trust and respect Master Fitz as a friend and an equal. Was her feelings lingering traces of his attempts to brainwash her as a kid? She was smart and knowledgeable and reliable. Ariel even put her trust in her. I thought this was interesting because, honestly, I went back and checked the first volume, and I was really trying to find it at what point it gave an indication that Rudius was brainwashing her. As I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the whole thing about him seeing her as beautiful, because I honestly had a lot of respect for Rudius in the first volume, because I never got an indication from his reaction to Sylphie that he was treating her like this plaything, treating her inappropriately, because it's obviously the big taboo with Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation as a whole is this idea of a 30-something transporting into another world, being reborn there, becoming a child again, and then hanging around younger girls. And I always felt like it was nice that it didn't feel wrong watching him interact with Sylphie. Of course, early on, it's because it's a boy, he's a lady killer, he looks attractive, but at the same time, it's a boy. I'll just hang out with him and grab any girls that don't, he passes on. But then he realized at some point, oh, it's a girl. And he suddenly struggles with interacting with her, realizing that she's a girl. And then over time, you really get a sense of him kind of creating those barriers around her. He even at some point mentions he doesn't see her as a love interest. Right now, Sylphie was his friend. And yeah, kind of get an indication that down the road, sure, why not? But again, at no point, even going back and rereading, did I get a sense that he was manipulating her in any way. The only indication is towards the very end, just before Paul sends him off. He was thinking about something. It said that it sounded pretty good, the idea of them just growing up together. He said that they would grow up together and she'd grow up into my perfect woman. He stops himself thinking, this is bad thoughts, bad thoughts. What happened to the whole oblivious thing, buddy? You're getting way too far ahead of yourself. But then he thinks to himself, there's nothing in the rulebook that says an oblivious protagonist can't brainwash their childhood friend, right? God, what am I thinking? This girl was only 6 years old. She was clearly very fond of me, but she wasn't capable of feeling romantic love yet. So yes, let's put that all on hold. For how long though? Now that was the question. Did I need to wait until she turned 10, 15, even older? But what if she ended up hating me for wasting her time? Her affection meter was already max, but there was no guarantee it would stay that way. Could I live with myself if it dropped to 0? But then after a while he says, I've decided. I'll make her into my perfect girl. I'm oblivious no more, Sylphie. But then that's when Paul walks in and he pulls himself away from Sylphie. He had a letter coming in. It was from Roxy. And this is that point where he's reminded about the whole Magic Academy thing. And it's at this point that I think it picks up on Paul. And Paul's been building up this thought process for a while now, that she's way too close to Rudy. She's become so dependent on him. And that's when he sends him off. So that's my whole mentality there, is that it specifically says, I can brainwash her. I can make her into my perfect girl. But he doesn't make the commitment to do it yet because he gets distracted. Oh, that's right. The University of Magic. That's right. Paul, can I pay for both me and Sylphie? What could I do? Can I get a job or something like that? That's when he's sent out to Eris. He doesn't get the opportunity to actively brainwash her. But he still kind of blames himself as if he was doing it. I think even when Paul wrote the letter and gave it to Ghislaine and Ghislaine gave it to Rudius, he acknowledges there that, yeah, I was kind of brainwashing her. She's going to get way too clingy of me and she's probably going to freak out if I decide to discard her. So it's kind of weird. Again, it doesn't necessarily say that he was brainwashing her, but he acknowledges that he could, and then he gets distracted, and then he acknowledges that he kind of was. But it does bring up a very important question here. Is the reason that Sylphie is so obsessed with Rudius because he brainwashed her? It kind of creates a very difficult question. But I think what he's doing here is realizing, but the Fitz I know, which is Sylphie, the Fitz I know is so much more than what she was. She's smart. She's reliable. She's helped me with so many things. I can trust her. Ariel trusted her. I've relied on her. She's become so much more. And as we get into Sylphie's chapter, we realize that this is a big thing for her as well because she wants to stand side by side with Rudius. And here he's saying that they've always been doing that. She doesn't know that yet. She wants to create that. Still interesting. Still interesting though. A warm, pleasant feeling swelled up inside of his chest. He was so happy he felt like dancing. For a moment, he wondered if he ever told Eris that he loved her. They talked about becoming family, but she brought it up. What about Sarah? No. He never went that far with her. He wasn't even sure if he loved Sarah. What about Fitz? Or Sylphie, rather. He really honestly wanted some time to think it over. Double check his thoughts. Work out a clear and precise answer. But if he didn't give an answer, she might disappear on him, just like Eris did. He found himself taking her by the shoulders and setting her at arm length away. I love you too, he said. There you go. The harem and dithering and who will they, won't they, and which one will he choose is over. He has chosen Sylphie. Of all of the wonderful character choices that he has, Sylphie. I'm not mad or anything. I'm not mad at all or anything. I'm not mad at all or anything. There's no way I'm mad that he chose Sylphie. The boring childhood friend character that typically Andrew loves childhood friend characters, Sylphie. I'm not mad at all. I'm not mad at all that Sylphie wins. The girl that couldn't even do things herself, that she had everybody else do things for her. Sylphie. No, it's sweet. It's deserved for her, I guess. Even though As we find out from later chapters, spoiler for those that are reading along with me, the extra chapter, the final chapter of Volume 9, we come to find out that while Sylphie is getting, I don't know, Luke to give her juice to be able to fix Rudeus's problems in order to get with her, while Sylphie's getting Ariel to set this whole situation up to show her love, Edis is up in the northern region literally taking on a sword god to get strong enough to defeat and get revenge for Rudeus against Orsted, the dragon god. But no, Edis definitely ain't the right choice. It's Sylphie, the childhood friend, her. It's not Roxy, the one that's going to Begaret right now with his father in order to rescue his mother from a dangerous labyrinth, I'm assuming. No, it's not Roxy who's literally going out to death and danger. It's Sylphie. Moving on, I'm making all the Sylphie fans hate me. I've literally like tons of unsubscribes. No longer watching Mushoku Mondays because Andrew's making fun of Sylphie. I'm not bitter at all. Congratulations, Sylphie fans. Your boring elf girl wins. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. She's cute. I'm into the elf thing. Just she's not my favorite. That's all. Plus, I get really angry in a minute, and I'm probably going to get back into this in a minute. I'm just more curious in the idea that he chose to say it now. He said, I love you. He just said it. Now, it feels genuine as we go along, but it really does feel like it's spur of the moment. Like he's being forced to have to accept it. Like, I have to accept this now. I have to say something now because she'll leave me if I don't. There's almost an element of him being pushed to confirm a love because he doesn't have the time to think about it. Like, I want to think this over with. I don't want to just jump into things. Do I really love her? I have to think about this for now. But no, she's going to run away from me. It's going to be just like Edis. She's going to run away again. I have to lock her down. I have to say it now. Sylphie was a mess, but it was okay. He kissed her. Her soft but slimy, snotted lips. As he laid her down, he was wondering if this was all her plan to tell him the truth in privacy. It was her first time. He wanted to make sure he didn't screw this up. As he reached down and touched Sylphie, he realized his tent collapsed. An hour passed before they gave up. Like Sarah all over again. It's Sarah all over again. Sylphie can't fix him. We thought Sylphie could fix him, but nope. Sylphie is not his cure. Again, it's Luke. Sarah couldn't fix it. Not Edis couldn't fix it. Sylphie couldn't fix it. Ellen Elise couldn't fix it. Luke fixes it. The rain passed and Rudeus felt like crying. It wasn't someone from a brothel or an adventurer that he just hit it off with. It was actually someone he loved. Someone he had a social connection with. The thought of Sylphie turning to look at him with disappointment scared him. But she didn't go anywhere. She was shocked, but not as much as Rudeus. It's not your fault, Rudeus. My breasts, they're pretty small, aren't they? I know, I'm not really sexy or anything. Don't be ridiculous, Sylphie. You're beautiful. The thing is, it's been like this for me for 3 years now. He told her his humiliating story. Even mentioned sleeping with someone 3 years ago. And now, he came here to cure his condition. I hate this now because I know from later on, you find out that Luke, the reason why she's so mindful of her chest size, granted she could probably have a lot of insecurities about her chest size even without it, but we find out later that Luke, the entire time Sylphie has known him, keeps harping on the size of her chest because, again, his family. Because from his perspective, if a woman doesn't have a big chest, they might as well be a man. And he's been constantly berating her about the size of her chest. And so it's like, now I know that's why she keeps bringing it up. She has so much insecurity about her body because he's constantly berating her about her body. Luke, just like Paul, is a dirtbag. Embarrassing you is the last thing I wanted to do, Sylphie. Please accept my sincerest apologies. There was nothing wrong with her body. She was on the small size, but she was a definition of petite beauty. Something Rudeus was actually a fan of. I feel you, Rudeus. I feel you. Don't talk like that, Rudy. I'm not embarrassed, okay? Come on. Go back to normal. I'd love to go back to normal, of course, but there seems to be nothing I can do about this, I'm afraid. She had a tear on her face. I just mean you could stop apologizing to me so formally. Oh, right, my bad. I just kind of got flustered. He wished that he could stop screwing things up. He wasn't thinking straight. Still, is it that weird for me to be a little formal with you? I mean, I've been calling you Master Fitz for months now. Yeah, I guess. But when you talk like that, it feels like you're trying to keep people at a distance. And then it finally dawns on Rudius. It's like a light bulb click, ching, kind of thing happens. Was that how everyone felt? Yes, Rudius. I thought Soldat pretty much made that clear to you. I kind of wonder if this is one of those aspects of this being wrote technically before 7, and maybe he didn't kind of clear that part up. I don't know. I would have to know how this part was changed from the web novel to this following 7 coming out, because it's like you kind of got that sense from Soldat. Soldat hated you because you kept doing that. Everybody has always seen you different, Rudius, based on how your mannerisms. You don't seem right. It was a big deal when he was even younger. That was even bigger deal then because he seemed so alien. Again, Sylphie's dad was like, what? This kid's talking weird. Everybody's seen him as so weird based on how he talks. And it seemed to kind of help him with the nobles. But then when he goes out adventuring, then he starts ticking people off, like Soldat. Ticked off Sarah. And I could see that being even worse for people that want to have an actual relationship with Rudius, a friendship. If he keeps talking like that, they might accept it. There's a lot of people that would accept the way somebody talks and just kind of go with it. But for somebody that's trying to make a loving relationship, it almost feels like he's pushing her away. From now on, I want you to be more casual with me, as you wish. Okay, that's not casual. These two. Oh, these two kids. Come on, you can cut me a break on one little as you wish. Well, maybe I'll make an exception. The conversation improved the mood slightly. It had been a while since he was casual with somebody. Yeah, he got comfortable with Soldat and company, but when he came to the school, it went right back to bowing and scraping. I kind of realized that as well. It kind of seemed like his mood shifted a lot when he went to the university. Of course, we didn't get much time with Rudius with Soldat, which kind of sucks. It still kind of sucks. Of course, he was also relaxed way back in Buena Village when he was around his cute little friend, Sylphie. Maybe that was the norm for them. Again, I think this kind of ties in with what they were talking about back at the brothel. This idea that he needs somebody that he can really trust. Somebody he's comfortable with and builds a trust with. Kind of makes sense for the whole situation with Sylphie. Now, again, I think this is all thrown down in the toilet with the introduction of Luke fixing the situation rather than it being Sylphie. It almost feels like they're trying to build, they've been building up this idea of Sylphie being the one that fixes Rudius. But she doesn't. Not that it has to work out like that. Not that I expect the writer to build up something and it has to happen. But it is sort of a feeling of letdown when you think about it. This has been the build-up. This is the fix. They hinted at it here. He has it here. I granted, back when they mentioned that in Volume 7, I was like, oh, that's going to be Sylphie. I mean, I wanted to be Roxy, but I knew it was going to be Roxy. I just, for some reason, knew the character I always love the most never ends up winning. So I assumed it was going to be Sylphie. And either that or Edis shows back up and says, sorry. Sorry. Oops. I killed Orsted, and now I'm sorry. But no, this is obviously establishing this is their norm. He doesn't have to put on act. He's always felt comfortable with Sylphie. So anyways, can I ask you why you were cross-dressing all this time, Sylphie? What happened to you after the displacement incident? He wanted to know why she was serving Ariel. Why she dyed her hair. Oh, right. Where do I even start? Do the time jump. She explained her time training in Buena Village, her attempts to find out where Rudius was from Zenith and Lilia. She was constantly asking, where'd you send him off to? Zenith had trained her in healing, and Lilia trained her in etiquette. She also pointed out the fact that she made the pendant that he wore up until this day. There was a side of me that thought the pendant would be like the big giveaway or something like that at some point. Just like casually drops, oh yeah, that's I made that. Moving on. So you made this yourself, huh? Why do you even have that, Rudy? Lilia gave it to me when I found her, but she didn't say anything about you making it for me. Well, she probably thought I might be dead. Ah, I see. He kind of mentions here that, yeah, some people might be okay with carrying around a memento of a dead friend, but for others, it might just be sad or uncomfortable. Kind of indicating that if Lilia thought there might be a chance that Sylphie was dead, she might not have mentioned anything about the pendant, assuming that Sylphie might be dead, and it would just hurt Rudius. So he's guessing that Lilia might not have said anything because she didn't want to hurt Rudius. After the displacement incident, she was ejected above the garden in the royal palace. She then saved the princess and was granted the role of a guardian mage. Somehow, her hair lost its color when she teleported. So again, there's the point where they're finally confirming why she appeared with white hair. And again, my theory there is that with this whole displacement thing, it's a lot of mana, a lot of explosion of mana, and if she was cursed some way, and that's why her hair was green, that curse could have been removed from her hair or whatever. The people of the palace were different, obviously. It was a big culture shock for her. Their ambitions and outlooks made her stomach hurt. She had to fend off assassins sent to kill Ariel. Eventually, they were driven from the capital, dealing with betrayals, deceptions, and desperate danger. They arrived at Renoa University of Magic. There, they devised the plot for a comeback. I know it's not your fault, Rudy, but when you introduced yourself to me like a stranger, it was kind of a shock. I'm sorry about that, but you know, if you just told me who you were a little earlier, this wouldn't have taken nearly as long. Yeah, you're right, I guess. Sorry. It's my fault for not saying anything, huh? I'm really sorry about that. Tears on her face, Rudius knew she was in anguish this whole time. According to her story, she hid her identity for a reason. There was a risk that she could reveal herself and he could turn out to be an enemy. He was connected to the Boreas family after all. He also gave no indication that he was looking for her. He couldn't really blame her. And again, it kind of sucks right here because it doesn't really give an indication of why it's a big deal that he could turn out to be an enemy and that would have anything to do with her revealing herself. It isn't until way later that we finally find out that it's all about breaking this image that Fitz creates around Ariel. Sylphie then admitted to her lack of courage, but also liked things the way they were. Being friends as Master Fitz, which Rudius agreed was not half bad. Again, he really loves Master Fitz. It's like one of those things of like breaking that connection between the two of them. Can you mold them together, Rudius? And I think that, again, that was kind of one of the interesting things that was presented with Fitz and Sylphie. Again, when I noticed what they were doing with Master Fitz, I sort of wanted them to make Sylphie her own character and it be Fitz, because I wanted this development that was happening to sort of kind of attach to our original understanding of who Sylphie is. So we have the childhood Sylphie, and then we have Master Fitz, and then we can go, oh yeah, okay, let's put it all together. Fitz is a cool person, that means Sylphie is a cool person. Granted, again, doesn't make it my favorite character, but it's still a great development for a character. To show a development in her character without relying on her previous connections. But of course, she started getting worried about the fact that he was hanging around pretty girls. That's of course when she enacted this plan. Because he was too oblivious. He at once swore an oath to act like a clueless protagonist. We talked about that earlier. But now he couldn't make fun of those guys anymore. He wondered if those protagonists had the same issues as him. Like they needed Viagra too. So I guess I ended up walking right into your trap, huh? Yeah, sorry. I feel really bad about tricking you like that. It's fine. I don't think it would have worked unless you took things that far. By the way, does Princess Ariel know you're doing this? Oh, absolutely. She planned the whole thing. Did she really? Yeah, that was a relief. He wouldn't have wanted to have to continue to keep this whole thing a secret. Though, this Fitz character wouldn't be going away. She was kind of worried about the whole thing, though. She could never figure out what your objectives were, or what you were thinking. I don't think she had any idea you came here because of your, problem. There was rumors, of course, of his condition, but maybe she dismissed them. In that case, maybe I should join your team after all. Honestly, Rudius wanted to avoid getting involved in power struggles. But if it would help Sylphie, he'd offer whatever support he could. Princess Ariel has done a lot for me. So personally, I'd be happy to have you at her side. But you don't want to get mixed up in Austrian politics, do you? Don't force yourself, Rudy. Sylphie's smile was more cute without her glasses. He felt heat downstairs again and licked her ear. Ah! Oops, pardon me. His little man went back into hibernation with that shriek. It was painful, but it seemed like he was on course to recovery. Thanks to Sylphie, of course. Luke. Thank you, Sylphie. Huh? For what? Sylphie tilted her head in confusion. For now, this was enough. Rome wasn't built in one day. All right. First of all, I'm not going to get any further than this. I think this will probably be enough for one Mushoku Mondays. I think it'll be actually work out really nicely having chapter 11, Zero chapter, and the Mad Dog chapter, whatever, at the next Mushoku Monday. But I wanted to stop here and really hit on one very important point. This makes me not like Sylphie. I said it before in a previous Mushoku Monday when they first arrived at the University of Magic, when Ariel did. That was the scene, again, that they portrayed at the end of the first season where Fitz pretty much welcomes Rudeus in. Now, again, the anime portrayed it as Sylphie sees Rudeus' name and says, "Oh, this is Rudy! Look, it's Rudy!" But in the light novel, in that particular chapter, she just picked up the thing and said, oh, she recognized him. At that point, I thought, okay, maybe it's Fitz. Fitz is the one that's bringing Rudeus into this war. It's like, no, there's no way that Sylphie's doing this. And even later on, we get an indication from a Sylphie chapter that no, she's like, I don't want to get Rudeus involved with this. I don't want him to be controlled by Ariel. I know Ariel does that. And she even knew, you're allowing me to bring Rudeus in because not that you want me to be happy, but that you have another motive that you want to use him. Again, fully acknowledging that Ariel wants Sylphie to be happy. She wants Sylphie to be with Rudeus. But she also wouldn't mind using Rudeus. Sylphie knows that. She's acknowledged that Ariel will use him. Doesn't want Rudeus to bow his head at her. But yet, there, in this little moment, she finally has Rudeus in her arms. Rudeus confessed his love to her. She confessed her love to him. And in her arms, he asks, so I guess I need to help Ariel. No, don't force yourself, but yeah, I kind of like her. I mean, I would like you to help her. I don't like Sylphie. I'm sorry, Sylphie fans out there. I don't like Sylphie. I've been kind of holding off by saying this for quite a while now. I've been hinting at it for quite a while now. I don't like Sylphie. That spot right there, I don't like Sylphie. Now again, Volume 10 can change my mind. Volume 12 can change my mind. 13, 14 onward. But for now, Andrew of Mushoku Mondays, Volume 9, I don't like Sylphie. Because she's taking the one that she loves, and she's pulling him in to a conflict. A very bloody conflict. Sylphie knows this. Sylphie knows this is bloody. She's been dealing with it for years at Ariel's side. She's had to kill people for Ariel and nearly be killed herself. We know of first-hand experience with one case where she was poisoned, and if she didn't detoxify it fast enough, she was dead. But yet, she's okay with pulling the one that she loves into this bloody war. Now, perfectly honest, Ariel could finish this peacefully. If she gains enough power and enough influential people, she can gain the throne. But I highly doubt that. There is a war brewing up. We're getting indication from multiple angles already. I mean, quick example was the whole chapter with the Death God. There's something brewing. And again, Ariel's not going to regain what she wants by words alone. She's gaining powerful people, exceptional people for a war. And Sylphie just signed Rudeus up for it. Now again, I think that's part of what the Man God said. If you don't go there, you will regret it. Because probably if Man God's able to see all this properly, he could see path Rudeus goes to university, meets Sylphie, fixes the Edie, whatever, he doesn't care about that. Meets Nanahoshi because he wants to use Nanahoshi. Man God wants to use Nanahoshi based on my theories last episode. But then here's this other branch. The one where Man God said you're going to regret it. Now, my theory there was that Man God could be saying that if you don't go to the university, you're going to go down to here and you're going to help them try to save Zenith and something bad's going to happen. You're going to regret it. But my thought process there was more in the idea that by going down there, you're not going to help Sylphie. who's going to help Ariel, and then you find out later Sylphie died. The conflict happened, they were fighting, and you weren't there to save Sylphie. And you'll find out at some point that Sylphie died in a battle, and you weren't there. But how is there regret in that? How would he have regret in that? Unless he learned at some point that Sylphie was at the university. He would never regret it because he wouldn't know who Fitz is. So again, it's one of those things of like, how far did this writer really think about this stuff? How far does this go with the branches of the man god's theories, or not theories, but foresight that he's giving Rudius? But again, it all comes down to, I like childhood friend characters. I think Sylphie's cute. I like elf characters. I like petite characters. Everything about Sylphie's design, everything about her very nurturing nature, her obsessionness with Rudius, she's cute in that regard. And she's very timid. And there's a charm about that. But when it comes down to the end game, I don't like her. Because she's willing to bring somebody that she claims she loves into a bloody political battle that he has no direct benefit to get involved with. Even Sylphie has no direct benefit to get involved with. It's strictly, Ariel helped me when I got displaced. And she sees her as a friend and even acknowledges that she could just be being manipulated. No wonder Ariel acts like you're her friend. You're her greatest asset. As we'll mention later, Ariel sees Fitz. Luke sees Fitz. Everybody sees Fitz as her greatest weapon. Fitz becomes the weapon that Ariel wields whenever she wants. I'm not saying Ariel is a bad character. I'm not saying that Ariel is a bad person. I understand the premise of the initial buildup of Ariel is that she's going to fix this nation that's falling apart. That's what Derek Redbat wanted, and that she accepted that. And I do believe that Ariel genuinely sees Sylphie as a friend. But she's also somebody that would not be willing to tell Sylphie, go away. If Ariel really, truly seen Sylphie as a friend, she would have told her, leave my side a long time ago. But again, she can use Sylphie, and Sylphie is willing. But anyways, that's all to say that in the end, after all these chapters, I'm happy for Sylphie. My heart breaks for her, but I'm not a massive fan. But in the end, I'm not a massive Sylphie fan. I know, and the only reason I'm saying this is not to anger the Sylphie fans. Every waifu is there to be loved. Everybody can have a waifu. There's always going to be a number one for everybody. Mine's Roxy. Adrian's Edis. Yours is Sylphie. And shoot, there's people out there that Ariel is their number one. Shoot, I even back the people that think that Man God and Orsted is apparently best waifu. It just means that Andrew isn't taking up Sylphie's time, and you get more of her time. Isn't that great? I'll admit there's kind of a devastating and unfortunate aspect of this whole thing. I joked about earlier about this idea of the best girl kind of mentality, that every single show has a best girl. Everybody has their own best girl. I even admitted earlier that typically my best girl or most shows is the childhood friend. I have a soft spot for that idea of somebody that you've spent a long time with. You've shared a more friendly and more immature bond with in the past. Back in the time when you used to be able to have fun and never cared about ideas like relationships or having children or getting married. You just wanted to have fun. It was all about the immature fun that you had with no predetermined thoughts of trying to establish this unending bond going forward. Now, yes, friendships you often want to have this unending bond with, but it's different than marriage and relationships. But when it comes to this series so far, with 9 volumes being completed, I personally don't have as much of a connection with Sylphie, and I think a large part of that is because he didn't meet her until he was like 5 or 6. Then he spent time with her for a couple of years before he was shipped off. It isn't as much of a childhood friend mentality, and most people would argue that the 3 main ones right now that most people think of was Roxy, Edis, and Sylphie. They're all technically childhood friends. Rudius met Edis when he was 8. He met Roxy when he was even younger than Sylphie. Was it like 3 or 4? He's really young. Every one of them is technically a childhood friend in some way. And they've each spent just as much time when he was young together with them. So they all sort of meet that same standard. But as I mentioned earlier, the struggle comes with which one will they choose, because everybody chooses a best girl and they want that one to be the one that wins. As I mentioned, my favorite currently and still remains is Roxy. Many, they love Edis. I love Edis too. I love all of them, honestly. But there's a funny thing that comes from our perspective as the readers, the third person perspective, because we all see everything they're all doing simultaneously. Now, it's been a long time since we've seen Roxy, but in this volume, we finally see what Edis is doing. And so there is a little element about what is everybody doing for Rudius and who he ends up choosing that does get you a little frustrated. It's technically what's fueling my frustration in this volume. Sylphie, this entire time that Rudius has been gone, has been helping Ariel. Rightfully so. Ariel technically brought her in when she had nothing and she would have probably been executed. And she formed a bond with her, and she wants to support her. And then when Rudius shows up, she suddenly really badly wants to be back with Rudius. Again, makes sense. But in the waifu wars itself, the frustration that some people, including myself, will have is disconnecting yourself from what Rudius knows. I know, based on reading the end of Volume 9, that Edis is doing something extremely dangerous, strenuous to support Rudius. She's going to try to kill Orsted to get revenge for what happened to Rudius. Orsted killed her lover, and she is angry and wants to destroy him. Some pretty strong dedication there. But again, from Rudius's perspective, he doesn't know that. All he knows is that she left him, abandoned him, and he finally gives up on her. Technically, Rudius does know what Roxy's doing for him, but he doesn't know the extent. He knows that Roxy's going with Paul to go get Zenith, but he doesn't know that Zenith is somewhere extremely dangerous. She's in a labyrinth. But then there's the other side that Rudius, unlike us, sees Roxy as a deity. Something you shouldn't touch. I don't want to touch that. Well, though again, a lot of that is his thought process that of all the people, I don't want to ruin my relationship with Roxy because he loves her so much. She gave him everything. And since he thinks that what happened with Edis was his fault, he doesn't want to mess up his relationship with Roxy like he did Edis. Sylphie, on the other hand, brought him into a situation where he really couldn't control the situation and he was forced to kind of move. And he takes it and accepts it because finally somebody loves me and she's not running away. That's all it took for him to dedicate himself to Sylphie. And I'm assuming at this point, again, based on reading the end of Volume 9, that he's not going to change his mind on that. It could change in the future. I don't need to know, chat. But it seems right now that the decision for this series is Sylphie. Sylphie wins the waifu wars. We'll see if that changes. Again, I don't need to know, chat. So while I don't agree with Rudius's choice, because I have my preference, I understand his choice. And it's always one of those funny things to get into when it comes to the waifu wars. He should have chose Persena. All he had to do was give her some meat and she would have barked for him. He should have chose Linnea, because cat girls forever. He should have chose Soldat, because best bro. Ariel, because gosh darn it, ringlets. Luke, because technically Luke fixed his ED. Again, joke for the next chapter. In the end, like I said, despite my frustrations, especially around Sylphie getting him involved with the war, I understand why he eventually chooses Sylphie. And I would understand from somebody from his perspective that he'd be willing to do anything to help her. She loves him. She protected him from bullies, technically. She's smart. She's reliable. He trusts her. Unlike everybody in the past that seemingly has broken his trust. Sylphie has never broke her trust to him. And so why wouldn't he jump into a burning building to help her? Just as she would jump into a burning building for Ariel. And again, all be Ariel's plan. Damn, is she good at manipulating people, because all she needed to do to get to Rudius was manipulate Sylphie. But going back to what I originally brought this up for, the actual devastating thing this kind of leads to is putting aside what the viewer and the reader feels about who is best girl is a thing that's obviously the whole tragic part of these types of stories. Love triangles and harems and stuff like that. One of the driving forces for us to want our best girl and our best waifu to win is because we don't want to see them heartbroken. We want them to win. Obviously, it's what comes with every type of story like this. And again, like I said, this could eventually lead to a harem route. I don't know. Maybe Rudius decides to kick off his idea of not wanting to follow in Paul's footsteps because he's seen how upset Zenith was and he wrote off ever wanting a harem in this world. He doesn't want that. Who knows? It could turn into a harem. Again, chat. The devastating thing that comes from this whole thing, what I'm bringing this up for, is my mind immediately, when you see that I love you from Rudius, is you immediately think of everybody that he won't be able to love. And as I read the extra chapter, and I seen that literally Edis is taking on a sword god because she wants to get stronger to take out Orsted to get revenge for Rudius, my heart breaks at the thought of one day Edis will bump into Rudius again and he'll be holding hands with Sylphie and she'll be thinking, what am I doing? I was doing this for him because I wanted to stand at his side as an equal and he's left me for somebody else. Again, technically Edis' fault for doing it to begin with, but still she thought that they would become a family. She talked about that with him, but then she left a really dumb note that screwed that up for her. And it's sad to think at some point her having that thought process of, oh, he said that I left him, that I left a note that said we weren't balanced. And even though I was struggling this whole time, he was going off with some other girl. It breaks your heart. And again, from Roxy's perspective, I'm doing all this because I care for Rudius so much. I'm trying to save his mother. And then finally I'm reunited with him and he's holding hands with this other girl. Ellen Elise told me to say I love you and deal with the repercussions afterwards. And suddenly, I'm too late because I was too busy helping him find his mother while he was banging some elf up in the north. Again, those are the things that make it hurt. That's the stuff that hurts. It hurts the most. But again, it's technically life. Technically life in the end. Life sucks. And sadly, for all unbest girls of the main character, tragedy will always befall them. But again, all depends on if Rudius chooses the harem route or not in the future. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, now that I've alienated so many of my viewers, that is it for this Mushoku Mondays. Again, like I said earlier, I'm pretty confident we can knock out 11, Sylphie 0, and the Mad Dog chapter, which I'm super excited to talk about because it had a really great twist to it. But as per usual, I greatly appreciate you guys' support. I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Mondays as always. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. You can leave a comment if the comments are currently working. Definitely appreciate, as always, everybody that joins for the Mushoku Mondays premieres. Your guys' support means so much to me. Love hearing from you guys. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content, as well as I have a playlist for all the Mushoku Mondays where I go through every single chapter one by one and analyze them in a overly analyzing way. Additionally, if you like my content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, a tips link, a super thanks button down below, as well as a membership button. I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. It means so much to me. You guys are amazing, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. Not long thereafter, he threw into quite admirable, really. Quite admirable. So maybe they never got a chance to do it, or maybe Ariel never felt the need to it. Or perhaps Ariel never felt, or even still, Sylphie in her own minds know there was a fear that he might forget. She had green hair when Rudius knew him. Because Sylphie never she originally hid this fact. She originally hid this fact when after she watched him silently eat breakfast, he would head off to work. After she watched him silently After she watched him silently eat breakfast, he would head off to work. After she'd watched him eat silent, after she would watch that's part of my job as you would. That's part of my job with. That's part of my job. That's part of my job when you're. That's part of my job when you're part of a. That's part of my job when you're a body. That's part of my job when you're on a body work. She brought her ring. She brought her wing. She brought a ring that she brought with. She brought this. She brought a. She brought out a ring, and she brought out a. Oh well. Oh well. There's not much we can do now. That is. Oh well. There's not much we can do about it now. Maybe an inheritance. Maybe it was an inheritance of. Maybe it was an. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. Maybe she inherited. I just mean you could stop apologizing me to. I just mean you could stop apologizing me to. So I just mean you can stop apologizing me to. Still, is it that weird for me to be so? Still, is it that weird for me to be a little formal with you? Still, is it a little weird? Additionally, I greatly support. Honestly, Darius's smile never made Sylphie flinch.